We're starting with a critical security briefing. Deep inside the global software ecosystem, one of the most sophisticated supply chain attacks in recent memory has just played out. So here's the bottom line. On March 31st, a threat actor tied to North Korea compromised the incredibly popular Axios library, using it to deploy a remote access Trojan. The attack was fast, it was precise, and it was cleverly designed to erase its own tracks, creating a massive risk for potentially thousands of organizations all over the world.
To really get a handle on the sheer scale of this threat, you just need to focus on one number: 100 million. That's how many times the Axios library gets downloaded every single week. It's not just some random tool, it's a fundamental building block of the modern internet.
And on March 31st, that trusted tool was turned into a weapon. For a very narrow window, just about 3 hours, anyone installing that package was unknowingly installing a backdoor. This created a direct and immediate threat to everything from development pipelines and build servers to critical production systems.
And this, right here, is the crucial point. It's all about the fundamental trust we place in the open-source supply chain. The attackers didn't even need to find a flaw in the code itself, they just had to compromise the trust around it. And the consequences of that? Absolutely massive.
This chart really paints a picture of the blast radius, doesn't it? With 100 million weekly downloads, Axios is found in an estimated 80% of all cloud and code environments. A compromise like this isn't just another vulnerability, it's a systemic risk to the entire digital ecosystem. So let's dive in and examine the anatomy of this compromise.
Understanding exactly how this happened is absolutely critical if we want to prevent the next attack. And this wasn't some clumsy smash and grab. No, this was patient, it was meticulous, and it was deliberately designed to slip right past the very security checks that are meant to stop this kind of thing.
Now pay close attention to this timeline because it reveals just how deliberate the attackers were. A full 18 hours before the main attack, they published a completely clean, totally harmless Decoy package. So why did that? To build up a legitimate publishing history. That one simple act allowed the later malicious version to bypass automated security scanners that are built to flag suspicious, brand new packages. This was not improvisation. This was a mature, calculated playbook in action.
The attack itself followed a really clear 4-step process. It all started with a single stolen credential. That was the key. They used that to inject a hidden malicious dependency. That dependency then executed a payload, installed a silent backdoor, and then tried to clean up after itself to hide the evidence.
So how on earth did they sidestep all the safeguards? Well, if you look at the top panel, legitimate releases go through a secure, automated pipeline. They use temporary verifiable credentials, require code reviews, CI scans, all the things you're supposed to do. But the attacker, down below, used a stolen, long-lived classic token. This let them publish the malicious package manually, right from their own command line, completely bypassing the entire security process. No code review, no scans, no guardrails whatsoever.
The ultimate goal here, the payload, was a Remote Access Trojan, or a RAT. This one was a custom variant they're calling waveshaper.v2. And let's be crystal clear, this is not just some simple password stealer. A RAT gives an attacker a persistent foothold and direct, hands-on keyboard access to any machine they compromise. From there, they can browse your files, execute commands, and escalate their attack across your entire network.
This brings us to our next point, the Axios compromise. Well, it wasn't an isolated incident. It was actually the latest and most impactful event in a much broader, financially motivated campaign that's been targeting the open-source community.
This attack fits into a really clear and, frankly, alarming pattern. In the weeks right before the Axios incident, the same threat actor, sometimes known as Team PCP, compromised a whole series of other popular developer tools, which you can see listed here. The goal was always the same: harvest credentials and get initial access into high-value cloud environments.
So who is it? Google's Threat Intelligence Group attributes all this activity to a group they track as UNC1069. Based on the specific malware, the infrastructure they used, and their historical patterns, they've identified this as a financially motivated threat actor with links to North Korea.
Okay, the fallout from this has to serve as a critical and honestly overdue wake-up call. This demands a fundamental strategic shift in how every single organization thinks about and manages the risk that's just baked into its software supply chain.
Even though the malicious packages were only live for a few hours, the impact was huge. The cloud security from Wiz estimates the malware successfully executed in about 3% of the affected cloud environments they monitor. So the primary question for every business leader isn't if you use open source anymore, but rather, what is your actual exposure?
The immediate response requires these 4 decisive actions. You've got to move from just a tactical audit to a full strategic reassessment of your entire supply chain security. You have to assume compromise, rotate all your secrets, and use this event as a clear mandate to harden your defenses against the next attack, because there will be a next.
So here's the key takeaway. Your organization's security boundary doesn't end at your firewall anymore. It extends through every single line of code your teams write, and more importantly, every open source dependency they use. This incident is a stark, real-world illustration of that new reality. The question now isn't about building higher walls, it's about securing the vast, interconnected supply chain that your entire business now depends on.